everyone, today we're talking about the immigration to the US. It's a very complicated topic usually because many people who dream to immigrate to the US and they're not having an employer or a business in the US that they can tie to or relatives in the US. Of course, this is something, it's not a question for people who have an employer and who can get some kind of work visas and just use them to immigrate. It's usually not a question for people who have relatives. But if it's not possible to find an employer for you or to found a business and get your visa, there are still 3 ways to immigrate to the US, which we could talk about today. So Timur is with me today. Hi.
Hi Lisa, hi everybody, good to be here.
Great. And he will tell you and me about 3 ways to immigrate to the US if you do not have an employer, if you do not have a business, if you do not have any relatives in the US. We will talk about so-called talent visas, the visas that are given just because of your achievements in your field of activity, which can be any field of activity actually, and we will talk about that too. So what are these 3 visas, and what's the difference between them? What rights do they give you in the US, and what are the specifics of them?
Well, for many people that want to relocate to the United States, the final outcome, the final destination they want to reach is either a green card or a citizenship. And that's why we kind of selected these 3 ways that are most effective. So the first one would be employment-based immigration, first preference, or EB-1A. Second would be employment-based immigration, second preference, or national interest waiver. And the third one, final one, is O1 visa, which is also employment-based immigration when you have an employer in the United States. So I suggest we start with the first one, with the first preference, and talk about many advantages that it has.
Right? Well, yeah, it's the names of these are are very complicated, and what's this EB-1A? It sounds really complicated. But we will tell you in detail what do they mean, what criteria there are. We have tons of videos on our channel about the criteria of these visas actually. So we will not talk about that in detail, but just in general, what people can get this visa and what people can't. And I think just one of the most interesting ones is EB-1A visa, of course, because it's actually, as far as I heard, just one of the fastest green cards out there. So can you just tell in detail who is this visa for and why, what timings are there? Because timings of the green card, getting a green card is very important because there are some type of the green cards such as EB-5 that take 3 to 5 years to get, which is an impossibly long time. Of course, it's just a normal situation for the US immigration system mostly, but of course we want to get it faster. So
yeah. So for employment-based visa, for like EB-1, let's call it a talent green card, but many people mistaking it for the green card for talented people. It's not for talented people, it's for people with exceptional or extraordinary ability in the field. Let's say I'm gonna list some examples for people who can get this visa, but they include but not limited to this list. So if I didn't list you, that doesn't mean that you can't or are not eligible for this visa. Let's say you are a musicologist, you are a singer, you're a dancer, you are an executive in a national or international company, you're a CEO, you are a software developer, software engineer. So all these people can apply for this kind of visa, for EB-1A. What you need to keep in mind is the achievements you have. Mostly when people come to us, we see that they have either high salary or publications about them or some national or international awards in the field or other relative articles that they can use for this visa. So if you have any of these, you can list them as your evidence. So you need to keep in mind that there are 10 different criteria that you can apply for. Now, the minimum you have to meet is 3. So very, I think, humanitarian for the US. Should we go into details about this criteria? I think we have a lot of material in our channel so people can go and watch if they need to.
Yeah, of course. We do not have to go into details today because we have a lot of materials, and we will leave links down below so you can watch them. Of course, what's important about the EB1A visa is, in my opinion, is that, and what's important to note is that it has quite of a high plank, right? You do not have to be like a Nobel Prize winner. You do not have to be like, you do not have to have an Olympic medal, but still sometimes the level of achievements you need to present are quite high, and you need to have some like extra, like outside of your work recognition. So if you are, for example, maybe a lawyer who wants to get a EB1A visa, you can just show something that you have done inside of your, like the company, for example, that you work for, or your cases or something. You need to show some kind of the fact that community recognizes you as a specialist. So maybe there are some articles about you out there or something like that. Or if you do not have them, you need to work on them. And sometimes when people start reading about this EB1A visa, they always think that this is something like extra. This is something that they cannot get because like of the wording that USCIS uses, but it's not. That's not so. And as Timur said, you do have to have certain achievements, but you do not have to have be top 3 in your field. And the good thing about that too is that like the field of your activity is not anyhow restricted, right? So for example, when we are comparing this type of visa with the UK Global Talent Visa, for example, which is basically made for IT specialists and art people and scientists, but no one else can apply. For EB1A visa, a lot of people, almost everyone can apply. There are certain groups too, like there are like athletics, business, mathematics, and so on. But almost everyone can fit in one of these groups because they are so wide at this point. So this is regarding the EB1A visa. And can you tell a little bit about the process of this visa, right? So what do you need to do to apply? And the timings, what time does it get? Because it's a visa with a high plank, right? But what makes it really attractive for many people is that it's a very fast green card.
Yeah, it is true. It's one of the fastest green cards probably, because other green cards you can get after like 10 years or maybe 2 years. The timing is very prolonged. So for EB1A, if you choose to apply for fast track, which is premium processing is called, your initial application will be reviewed within 15 calendar days. As from our practice, the USCIS review the applications way faster, like within 10 or maybe 12 days, so not 15. After this, you have to work on your case a little bit more because USCIS wants you to provide some more evidence or more material or just clarify some things. Usually for this, they give you about like 2 or 3 months. After you send your response to this request the USCIS sent you previously, they review final application also within 15 days. But for this, you have to pay. And the fee for premium processing for fast track is $2,500, so it's quite expensive. Well, previously it was like $1,205, I think, and now they kind of leveled up the prices. And the normal fee, the 140 application which you file, costs $700. So all in all, you would have to pay $3,200 for this application. For EB1A, 140 petition. For EB1-2 is the same. For O1, for non-immigrant visa, it differs. So you have to pay an application fee, $460. I think we will list all the numbers on the screen so that people wouldn't be confused about all this. digits and so on. Yeah. For EB1, it's way longer than for EB2. So can you maybe tell about the dates, timeframes for EB1, for EB2, for O1 application too?
Of course, like if you think that the EB1A visa is not maybe if you think that you are not eligible for the EB1A visa because of the fact that the applying for this visa is quite high, you need to show some really great achievements in your field, and you think maybe that you're not the perfect candidate for that. You can also think about EB2 and a W visa, which I think, like on the other hand, has one of the lowest planks for the among all the green cards. So can you tell me a little bit about like who is this visa for and who can get this visa, and like basically what's the difference between EB1A from the like point of view of the law, right, and so on and so forth. Can you just give a general information about this visa?
Yeah, EB1 2 is also divided into different categories. It's a little bit complicated, but mostly from what I can see, EB2 and specifically EB20W, which is like national interest. So you apply for this category when you don't have an employer in the United States and you are not planning to get one. So aside from other categories of EB2, the national interest waiver does not require you to have one, to have an employer. The main difference between the first, the EB1A and EB1-2 and the W is that the first time frame, second preference. So for EB2, it's often the case that there's not enough visas in a calendar year or in a fiscal year. And even if you get approved for EB2 and AW or other EB2 categories, you still have to wait some time for an immigration visa to be available so you can apply for it to move to the United States. As for people who can apply for this visa, from my practice, is mostly people with academic background, but not limited to. We have different categories of people, including people from IT as well. DevOps is very popular within EB2 category. As I said, academic people, also national executives or people from finance, people from insurance companies, also very often the case. So it's not limited to. Mainly criteria here is a little bit similar to EB1A. So you have to show exceptional, not extraordinary. The USCIS differs wording, exceptional, which is for EB2, like lower requirement, and extraordinary, which is for EB1, which is higher requirement. So within this EB2 application, you don't have to show extraordinary ability. So it's like a little bit lower requirement. As for timeframes, I already mentioned, basically when you apply, if you don't fast track your application, it's from 8 months to 1 year. Your application will be reviewed by USCIS. If you do fast track your application, it will be reviewed within 45 days. But we don't advise to do it. Yeah, mostly we say that it doesn't make any sense, as if you get approved, as I say, you will still need to wait for an immigration visa to be available within this category. So yeah. Do you want to add something? Maybe that I missed some points in this
Yeah,
visa?
what's the timings of how in what time you can get this visa? It's longer than maybe 1A, but is it like how many months or years do you need to plan to get this visa in?
Well, first you have to decide if you prepare your case yourself or if you use some other help like advocates or lawyers or any immigration agency. As for time frames to review this application, as I said, it's about 8 months to 1 year, the initial review of the application, and then likely similar to EB1A, USCIS will send you a request for evidence. They will ask you to clarify some points, they will ask you to provide more documentation on some of the evidence, and after you send your response to request for evidence, they will take approximately the same time to review the application again to make a final decision. So if you apply for EB1, for EB2, NAW, or other applications, without fast track, you have to be ready to wait for at least a year or a year and a half to have your final decision on your application, whether it's denial or approval. And then you will have to wait for a visa, for an immigration visa to be available if it's not presently. So it's quite long, so people have to have patience who apply for this category. It's not that easy to wait for a final decision. So yeah. Do you want to talk about O1, like a final one? Like what's the requirements for O1? It's like non-immigrant visa, so specifically for this one?
Yeah, just have one more question about the EB2 NAW visa. There is like this stereotype or not stereotype. You tell me about the fact that usually people who from STEM category, that is science, technical, engineering, mathematics, and from technical categories, they usually have like higher chance of getting the visa than other people who are not STEM. So is that true or not?
That is, I think that is true. I don't have the official statistics, and the USS doesn't publish it, but it does make sense. STEM people are more relevant to this criteria. They have more academic, technical, educational background, which is, I think, easier to list on the application for EB2. But at the same time, if you are not from STEM, it doesn't mean that you cannot apply for EB2 NAW or you are not eligible. It all depends on the criteria that you meet and the strength of evidence you provide. So aside from STEM, I think it's a very great opportunity for people from all categories to try their chances, like nonetheless. So yeah, but yeah, I think it makes sense for people from STEM. Yeah. So should we move to O1?
Does it mean that people who are outside of the STEM they can get this visa?
It means that people who are outside of the STEM they still can apply. Again, if you are not from this field, not from science, from technology, education, mathematics, it doesn't mean that you can't apply for this visa. You can still apply for this visa even if you're from athletics or you're from like arts. You're an artist, you're I don't know, creative director or anything else. You can still apply for this visa. It doesn't limit you to this category. It depends on how strong your evidence is and how many criteria you meet. So in EB2 NAW for extraordinary ability, there is 6 criteria mainly. And you need to meet at least 3 of them. So if you do, you're welcome. You can apply for this visa as long as you want, as many times as you want. So yeah.
Okay, and about the criteria, what are you said about like the type of evidence you need to provide, but usually the criteria that this visa that you need to meet to get this visa, these are like higher education diploma, like to have 10 years of experience in your field, right, and something like that. So they are not that hard comparing to EB1A criteria. Okay, and the last one actually is the O1 visa. The O1 visa is, so we said, like the name of this video that you're watching is like top 3 visas that do not require an employer in the US to relocate. Actually, O1 has this. It requires an employer to get this visa. So just we tricked you, but there are some things that you need to know about that. And in some cases, people without an employer they can apply for O1 visa, right? So I think Timur can you tell me and our people watching us a lot like more about that? So what are the criteria for this visa? For like how long can you stay in the US on this visa? Is this a green card or not? Like. Can you tell in detail about that? Just general information for us to understand.
Yeah, O1 I think is one of the most interesting visas because of the criteria that you have, because of the requirements. that the USCIS provides you with. So basically, O1 is a non-immigrant visa, so you cannot move to United States based on this category. You can go to the United States and maybe change your status or prolong your visa and initially, like eventually, get your green card. But based on this category, you cannot initially. O1, one of the probably main specific of this visa is that it does require you to have an employer in the United States. If you don't, you're not eligible for this visa. The criteria that you have on this visa are very similar to EB1A visa, but the main thing is that they are like less strict, and you can still apply for this criteria if you don't have extraordinary ability or exceptional ability, as in the case of EB2. It's again awards, associations, high salary, some articles about you, some materials published about you, and many others. In this criteria, there's 8 requirements, not 10, like in EB1A. And as the main proof within this application, you have to have a consultation letter. Basically, this letter, I will not go into details, but it's a requirement. Like, you cannot apply unless you have it. It's a letter basically written by a peer group or an organization in your field, which says that yes, he is an extraordinary ability person and he will do great things in the United States. If you don't have such a peer group or organization in your field who or which can write such a letter, you can ask the USCIS to waive it, which is like to say that, yes, you don't have it, okay, we will review your application nonetheless. Time frames for this application, they are very similar to EB1, from 4 to 6 months if you don't fast track your application, and within 15 days, the same as EB1 if you do fast track your application. As I mentioned, fee for this application for I-129, which is like main petition, will be $460, and the same as EB1A for fast track, $2,500, and you get your decision for a request of evidence within 15 days, then you respond, and then your final decision also within 15 calendar days. I think it's one of the main advantages of O1 is that it's very flexible. You can ask USCIS to waive the requirements for a letter. You can choose some of the criteria that you like. You can ask your employer to help you with the application because he or she or like it, the employer has to file your petition. It has to be on your behalf, yes, but the main petitioner has to be your employer. It's very important. Yeah. So Lisa, do you want to add something? Maybe I missed something. Should I cover some more of this?
Yeah, basically, I think this is it. But just something that I want to add about the O1 visa. Of course, it's very different from the 2 visas that we talked about before, the EB1A and in between a W, because it's not a green card. And from the point of view of the law, it just gives you more of a like restricted like a little bit of restrictions. For example, you can only work on your employer in the US, and you cannot get money from any kind of other source. So regarding what can your employer be, sometimes this visa is very suitable for business people, for entrepreneurs, because sometimes you can found your own company in the US. And you can show maybe some kind of a financial transaction there, or this company is founded. You're a co-founder, and the other co-founder is a person with a green card or passport. In this case, sometimes you can be like self-employed. You can be your own employer for this visa. So this is why I said so. Sometimes this visa does not require employer in the US, but sometimes does. And from the point of view of the law, it does give you other restrictions other than working on the single employer and nothing else. You can relocate your family members, your spouse, your children under 21 to the US, but they cannot work in the US. I mean, your spouse, they cannot work in the US on anyhow. They can study, they can like maybe go to college or a university, but they cannot work. They do not have a right to work. Their visa is called O3. I'm sorry. Their visa is called O3. So this is second thing. The third thing about this visa is, of course, that it does not lead you to green card or to passport. Just you can be in the US for 15 years on this visa, for 12 and 20 years, and you can never get your green card and never get your passport. So mostly, like EB1A in O1 visa, they are 90% similar in their criteria. They're very similar. But like, as I said, the plank is higher for the EB1A visa. So you need to show the same criteria, but the achievements need to be higher. So this is why many people, they first get their own O1 visa and then they switch to EB1A visa by adjustment of status being in the US or outside the US. So yeah, this is it. So these are top 3 ways. This is very detailed stream of top 3 ways of relocating to the US. If you are interested, like what particular way is more suitable for you, you can sign up for free consultation with our specialists. We can help you understand what visa is most suitable for you. We can help you build like your roadmap, right, of your application and help you get us all started, because there are a lot of details, there are a lot of things that you need to know, and we can help you get that on a free consultation. So thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, please ask in the comments, and have a great day. Goodbye.